Sometimes, the truth hurts. And when it comes to human relationships, the reality is that we often cling to people who deep down have already let us go. We convince ourselves that if we try a little harder, if we prove our worth, if we do things right, that person will stay. But here's the truth. One that, once understood deeply, changes everything. When someone no longer wants you, the signs are clear. However, our minds fight against them. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious constantly sends us signals, whispering uncomfortable truths in the form of intuitions, emotions, and even physical sensations. That feeling of unease when someone responds with coldness, that emptiness you sense when the connection begins to fade, all of that is your unconscious speaking to you. But instead of listening, we often choose to ignore it. Why? Because facing the truth means confronting our deepest fear, the fear of rejection, of not being enough, of being abandoned. In our psyche, rejection is not just an isolated event. It's a wound that touches the deepest layers of our identity. When someone stops loving us, we don't just feel the absence of their affection. We are forced to look into a mirror that makes us question ourselves. Why wasn't I enough? But here is where Jung offers a completely different perspective. It's not about being enough for someone else. It's about being authentic to ourselves. When someone no longer loves you, you'll notice it, not because they will tell you directly, but because their energy changes. Jung spoke about projection, the mechanism through which we impose onto others what we don't want to acknowledge within ourselves. When we cling to someone who no longer feels the same way, we are projecting our own need for love and validation onto them. We want them to give us what we are not willing to give ourselves: acceptance, security, self-knowledge. And here lies the problem. The more you insist on holding on to a relationship with someone who is not aligned with you, the further you stray from your own truth. Jung believed that the unconscious will always seek to manifest truth, even if it means causing pain. That's why, when someone no longer wants you, you begin to notice the signs you previously ignored. Shorter responses, less enthusiasm, less interest in sharing their world with you. It's not that they are hiding it from you, it's that you don't want to see it. The conscious mind seeks rational explanations. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they're going through something difficult. If I try harder, things will go back to the way they were. But the unconscious knows the truth. It knows that relationships based on one-sided effort are destined for suffering. It knows that clinging to someone who no longer chooses you is an act of self-deception. Jung also spoke about the importance of individuation, the journey of becoming the most complete and authentic version of yourself. One of the hardest stages of this process is learning to let go. And this doesn't just mean letting go of people, but also letting go of ideas, expectations, and narratives that no longer serve you. When someone stops loving you, the pain doesn't just come from their absence. It comes from the internal struggle between what you wish for and what is real. But here's the most crucial part. Letting go is not losing. It is gaining. It is gaining clarity, energy, and space for what is truly meant for you. Jung taught that the universe and the unconscious always work together. When something leaves, it is because something better is meant to arrive. But for that to happen, you have to be willing to accept the truth, even when it hurts. Most people resist this truth because it requires accepting uncertainty. It requires acknowledging that we have no control over how others feel or act. But there is one thing you can control: your ability to choose what to do with the reality in front of you. And when you finally accept it, something interesting happens. At first, the emptiness is overwhelming. It feels like something has been ripped away from you, something that once felt like a part of you. But then, in the silence of that absence, you begin to notice something you had been ignoring all along: your own voice, the voice that had been drowned out by the need to fit into someone else's life, by the fear of loneliness, by the hope that things would be different. Carl Jung understood that human suffering does not come solely from pain itself, but from our resistance to transformation. We cling to the idea that love must last forever, that people should stay if they truly love us, that if we try hard enough, everything will eventually work out. But the truth is quite different. Love is a reflection of consciousness. When a connection is no longer aligned with who you are, its energy shifts. Not because someone has done something wrong, but because everything in life is in constant motion. You won't immediately notice the disinterest because the mind creates illusions to protect itself from pain. We justify absences, silence, and coldness. We tell ourselves it's just a phase, that stress is to blame, that if we give a little more, maybe everything will return to how it once was. But the reality is that when someone stops loving you, their world continues to turn without you. You'll see it in the way they no longer make you a part of it. It's not that they hate you, nor that they want to hurt you. It's simply that their energy has moved in another direction. This is not a punishment. It's a call. A call to look within yourself and ask, why am I insisting on something that no longer flows? Why am I so afraid to let go? Jung spoke of projection because he understood that many times what we seek in others is what we deny ourselves. Perhaps you are looking for love from someone who cannot give it to you because you have not yet learned to love yourself. Maybe you are waiting for validation from someone who has already moved on because you have not yet learned to recognize your own worth. Life has a mysterious way of teaching us what we need to learn. If you keep chasing someone who no longer chooses you, the lesson will only become more painful. Because love is not possession, it is alignment. And when something is no longer aligned, insisting only prolongs suffering. You will notice it when their words lose warmth, when their responses become mechanical, when there is no longer emotion in their eyes when they see you. Not because they are cruel, but because their emotions have changed. And here comes the key question. What will you do with this truth? You can deny it, keep insisting, and hope that things will change. Or you can do what Jung suggested, integrate the lesson, allow the pain to do its work, and finally, let go. Letting go does not mean you did not love. It does not mean it did not hurt. It means you love yourself enough not to beg for scraps. It means you choose your peace over a futile struggle. It means you recognize that life moves forward and that what is truly meant for you will never have to be forced. The energy of those who are genuinely meant to be in your life flows toward you naturally. There is no need to beg, to convince, or to prove your worth. When you decide to let go, something within you changes. At first, it hurts. But then, in that absence, in that space that once felt unbearable, you start to notice something new: freedom. You begin to remember who you are outside of that relationship. What excites you? What makes you feel alive? You start to reclaim the parts of yourself that you set aside while trying to hold on to something that no longer had life. Jung said that the unconscious always seeks balance. When something breaks, when someone leaves, it is because a new version of you is waiting to be discovered. But you will only see it if you stop looking back. It is not easy, I know. Everything inside you will want to hold on, to send that last message, to make that final call, to look for one last sign of hope. But every time you do, you are prolonging your own suffering. And here is the hardest truth to accept. If someone truly wants you in their life, you will know it. You will feel it in their words, in their actions, in their energy. You won't have to decipher ambiguous messages or justify their indifference. A real connection is clear. It does not leave you in a constant state of anxiety. It does not make you feel like you have to fight to be seen. The greatest act of love you can give yourself is recognizing when someone has stopped choosing you and having the courage to do the same. Because as long as you keep holding on to what has already left, you are blocking the arrival of what is truly meant for you. When someone no longer wants you, you will notice it. And when you finally decide to accept it, you will notice something else too, that your life, your peace, and your happiness never depended on someone else. They were always within you, waiting for you to choose them. The mind plays cruel tricks when faced with loss. It wants to find reasons, explanations, justifications. It wants to believe that if you change something about yourself, if you try a little harder, if you say the right words, everything will return to how it was. But here is the truth that Jung understood so well. What is gone is gone. What is not aligned with you cannot stay. And what is truly meant for you will never have to be forced. It is difficult to accept because it means letting go of the illusion of control. We have been taught that if we work hard enough on something, the results will be what we expect. But in human relationships, this does not work. You cannot control someone else's feelings. You cannot convince someone to love you if their heart no longer resonates with yours. You can try, of course. You can sacrifice yourself, mold yourself, shrink yourself, endure absences and silences. But all of that will only achieve one thing, making you forget who you are. Carl Jung spoke of the importance of integrating the shadow, the process of recognizing those parts of ourselves that we often avoid confronting. These are the aspects of our psyche that we suppress, either out of fear, shame, or societal conditioning. But they do not disappear simply because we refuse to see them. Instead, they manifest in our actions, our emotions, and especially in our relationships. One of the most painful ways this happens is when we find ourselves clinging to someone who does not love us back. Why do we hold on so desperately to someone who has clearly shown us that they do not want to be with us? The answer often lies in our fear of what their rejection reflects back to us. Deep down, we are terrified that their absence confirms our worst fears, that we are not enough, that we are unworthy of love, that something within us is fundamentally broken. We attach our self-worth to their presence, and when they leave, we feel like we lose a part of ourselves. But this is the greatest illusion. Their love never defined your worth. Their presence or absence never determined what you deserve. That power lies only within you. When someone no longer loves you, you will know it. You will see it in the way they stop prioritizing you, in how their messages become shorter, colder, and more distant. You will feel it in the way conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feel forced, strained, as if you are speaking to a stranger. It is not necessarily because they want to hurt you, but because the energy between you has changed. And though it is painful, though every part of you wants to fight against it, the bravest thing you can do is to accept the truth, because the truth, no matter how painful, will set you free. Jung famously said, "What you resist persists." The more you resist accepting that someone no longer wants to be in your life, the more pain you will create for yourself, not because they are cruel, but because life, the universe, and your own subconscious are pushing you to let go. At first, your mind will rebel. It will try to convince you that maybe they just need space, that perhaps if you say the right thing, if you act a certain way, they will change their mind. But here is the key truth. Real love does not need to be begged for. When someone truly wants to be in your life, they show it. And when they no longer want to be, they show that too. The problem is, we often refuse to see the signs because acknowledging them means facing the emptiness of their absence. But that emptiness is not the end. It is a sacred space, a rebirth. It is the moment where you have the opportunity to rediscover yourself, to remember who you were before them. Love is not about losing yourself in another person. It is about sharing your light without letting it be dimmed. When someone no longer loves you, you will notice it. And when you finally choose to let go, you will notice something else. Life continues. The pain is not permanent. There are new doors waiting to open for you, but you will never see them if you keep looking back at what was. Then comes the inevitable moment, the point where you can no longer deceive yourself. Every sign, every absence, every empty word weighs heavier than the excuses you once told yourself. There are no more doubts, no more maybes, only the raw, undeniable truth. The connection has been severed. The bond has weakened. The feeling has changed. And the most painful part is not that the other person no longer loves you, but the internal battle between accepting this reality or clinging to something that no longer exists. This is where Jung offers us a different path, one beyond desperation and resistance. Jung taught us that every emotional crisis is an opportunity for transformation. Not because pain should be romanticized, but because within that pain lies the seed of growth. The lesson that can only emerge when we are willing to look inward instead of searching for answers outside of ourselves. We hold on because we believe that letting go means losing something irreplaceable. But have you ever truly asked yourself, what is it that you are afraid of losing? Often, it is not the other person that we miss, but the version of ourselves that existed within that relationship. We mourn the illusion, the dream of what could have been. But real love is not an illusion. It is not something that needs to be convinced, manipulated, or forced. It is something that flows naturally, freely, without conditions, without games, without constant doubts. When someone no longer loves you, it is not a sign that you should try harder. It is a sign that your paths have diverged. And yes, it hurts. It hurts to let go of a story you built in your mind. It hurts to accept that what you wanted will not materialize. But pain is not the enemy. The true enemy is resisting what is already inevitable. Carl Jung spoke of the unconscious as a force that is always seeking balance. When a relationship falls apart, it is neither a punishment nor a coincidence. It is a manifestation of that balance that the universe is trying to restore in your life. Often, we cling to what hurts us, not because we truly need it, but because we fear the emptiness left in its absence. But that emptiness is not the end. Rather, it is the space where healing begins. When someone no longer loves you, you will notice it in the smallest details, the absence of enthusiasm, the emotional distance that grows day by day. It is not because the other person wants to hurt you, but because their energy has changed. And here lies the most difficult lesson to learn. You cannot make someone feel something that is no longer there. But what you can do is choose how to respond to this truth. You can deny it, fight against it, prolong your own suffering, or you can accept it and take the most important step of all. Return to yourself. Because when you let go of what no longer belongs to you, you begin to recover everything you had left behind while trying to sustain a relationship that was no longer meant for you. It is not easy. Nothing that involves growth ever is. But when you finally decide to let go, something inside you changes. You no longer live waiting for answers that will never come. You no longer waste your energy trying to revive something that has already died. Instead, you start to notice something new. Space. A space where you can rebuild yourself, where you can rediscover who you are, where you can begin to attract what is truly aligned with you. And then over time, you realize something that once seemed impossible to believe. You didn't lose anything. On the contrary, you gained the opportunity to start over, to create a life where love is not a battle, but a natural and fluid connection. A life where you no longer have to convince anyone to stay, because the people who are truly destined to walk with you will never need to be persuaded to do so. And when you finally accept the truth, when you stop looking for signs where there are none, when you let go of the need for everything to be as it once was, something inside you changes. Not immediately, not without pain, but over time, you feel a relief, a quiet kind of rest. Because what exhausts us the most is not rejection itself, but the internal struggle of trying to hold on to something that has already crumbled. Carl Jung spoke of the process of individuation as the path to the true self, and part of that journey involves recognizing which relationships nurture your growth and which ones only drain your energy. Sometimes we insist on staying in places where there is no longer reciprocity because we confuse love with attachment. We believe that if we let go, we will be losing something valuable. But what we truly lose is ourselves when we stay where we are no longer welcome. You will notice it in the way conversations become shorter, in how responses come with less enthusiasm, in how silences grow longer and heavier. It is not because the other person wants to hurt you, but because their energy is no longer aligned with yours. And the most painful part is not the change itself, but the resistance to accepting it. The mind will try to find excuses. You will tell yourself that they are just going through a rough time, that maybe if you wait a little longer, things will go back to how they were. But Jung taught us that the unconscious always knows the truth before the conscious mind does. And if you stop to listen, if you stop justifying the unjustifiable, you will see that the answer was always there. You do not need concrete proof to know that someone no longer wants to be in your life. You do not need perfect closure or words that confirm what you already feel. Because love is not communicated only with words. It is communicated through actions, through energy, through the way someone chooses to be present in your life. And when that presence fades, when the connection cools, holding on will only hurt you more. But here comes the most important part. Letting go is not an act of weakness. It is an act of self-love. It means valuing yourself enough not to stay where you are not fully received. It means choosing your peace over the fear of loneliness. It means preferring the uncertainty of the future over the false security of a relationship that only hurts you. It is not easy. Nothing that involves growth ever is. But when you finally make the decision to let go, to stop waiting, to stop clinging to the hope that something will change. You experience something you may have never felt before. Freedom. And in that freedom, you discover that you are never losing someone else. You are only finding yourself again. And then, on a random day, without realizing it, you wake up and notice that it no longer hurts as much, that you no longer feel the need to check your phone, waiting for a message that will never come, that you no longer feel that weight on your chest every time you think of that person, because the wound, though deep, has begun to heal. And in that process, you have become someone stronger, more aware, more connected to your true self. Because when someone no longer loves you, you will notice it. But when you finally choose to accept it, you will also notice something else, that life goes on, that love is not something to beg for, and that the best decision you can ever make is always to choose yourself. And then, there comes that moment when everything changes. Not because the other person came back, not because you got the answers you were looking for, but because you finally let go. You stopped waiting for what never arrived. You stopped asking why. You stopped carrying the hope that something already broken could return to what it once was. And in that moment, you realize that true peace does not come from holding on, but from letting go. Carl Jung taught us that life is always in motion. Nothing remains the same because growth is inevitable. Change is the only constant, and as we evolve, some people will continue walking alongside us, while others will take different paths. This is not a sign of failure or loss. It is simply the natural order of life. Every farewell, no matter how painful, carries a hidden blessing. It creates space for something far more valuable, a deeper connection with yourself. At the end of the day, what hurts the most is not someone's absence. It's not the empty spaces they leave behind, or the memories that linger like echoes in your mind. What truly causes suffering is the time we spend ignoring our own intuition, fighting against what was already evident. Deep down, we always know when someone's love is fading, when a relationship has reached its natural end. But instead of embracing that truth, we often resist it, hoping that if we just try harder, if we just hold on a little longer, things will go back to how they once were. But the truth is, love is not something that can be forced. When you finally accept that someone no longer loves you, you are not just releasing yourself from the emotional weight of waiting. You are also opening the door to something new. You create space for people who genuinely appreciate your presence, for relationships that flow effortlessly, for a life where you no longer have to convince anyone to stay. Because real love is not a negotiation. It is not a contract where you have to prove your worth to be chosen. Love, in its purest form, is free. It is reciprocal. It is a constant choice made without pressure, without desperation, without fear. And once you create that space of clarity, once you stop clinging to what no longer serves you, something truly beautiful happens. You start to see yourself differently. You begin to remember who you were before that relationship, before the confusion, before the internal battle. You reclaim your energy, your self-worth, your enthusiasm for life. And in that moment, you realize something profound. It was never the other person who completed you. You were whole all along. You simply forgot. Jung spoke about synchronicity, the idea that when you align with your truth, the universe responds in kind. Suddenly, doors that were once closed begin to open. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, encountering new opportunities that reflect your inner transformation. But none of this can happen if you are still investing your energy in something that keeps you stuck. When you hold on to something that is no longer meant for you, you block the very blessings that are trying to reach you. So the real question is not, why did someone stop loving me? The real question is, why do I keep seeking validation from someone who cannot give it to me? The focus should not be on how to win them back, but on how to win yourself back. Because when someone truly wants to be in your life, you will know. There will be no confusion, no mixed signals, no need to force anything. And when someone does not want to be in your life, you will know that too. The difference lies in what you choose to do with that truth. Today, I invite you to reflect. How many times have you ignored the signs out of fear of being alone? How many times have you justified someone's indifference just to avoid facing reality? Leave a comment below and share which part of this message resonated most with you. What decision will you make starting today? If this content helped you in any way, share it. Someone else might need to hear this message right now. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so we can continue exploring these life-changing topics together. Because the more people wake up to these truths, the more we can build a community where self-love and authenticity are the foundation of everything we do.